Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Michael Manfield. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge Admiral Darrell Caudle, Commander of the United States Fleet Forces Command, United States Navy, accompanied by Vice Admiral Mark Hammond, Chief of Navy. Dr. Myrna Gray, Deputy to the Commanding General, United States Army Security Assistance Command. Major General John T. Rhyme, Commanding General, Picatinny Arsenal, United States Army, accompanied by Air Vice Marshal Jerry Van Leeuwen, Head of the Guided Weapons and Explosive Ordnance Delivery Division, and their accompanying delegations. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Leopold Primary School from Leopold, Victoria. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Bombardier Sydney Charles Harper. Sydney Charles Harper was born in late 1880 in Bromley, in the English county of Kent, to Emily and Edward Harper. Sydney attended the local school and trained as an electrician. Harper served in the Royal Horse Artillery as a horse driver for 5 years full-time and a further 8 years in reserve. With the artillery, he served in the South African Boer War before being invalided home in 1901 with enteric fever. In 1904, Harper married Annie Leach in Bromley. The English census of 1911 shows that the couple had a baby daughter, Phyllis, but little else is known about the family. In about 1912, Harper emigrated to Adelaide, while his wife and family remained in England. His reasons for moving are not known, but his older brother Bertie was living in South Australia at the time. After Britain declared war on Germany in August 1914, Harper volunteered for service with the infantry of the Australian Imperial Force. He was rejected for service, though the reasons are unclear. However, in September 1915, Harper volunteered again, and this time, with his experience in the British artillery, he was accepted for service in the 18th Battery of the 6th Australian Field Artillery Brigade. After a period of initial training in Australia, Harper embarked at Melbourne on the transport ship Persic in November 1915. The 18th Battery arrived in Egypt in December and trained at the army camps there until March 1916. From Egypt, the battery sailed to France and first entered the lines in the Somme sector in April 1916. The men spent the year firing in support of British and Australian infantry attacks on German positions near Pozières and other locations on the Somme. Harper excelled at his work and was promoted to the rank of Bombardier in August 1917. He was granted 10 days' leave shortly afterwards, which he spent in the United Kingdom. When he returned to the battery in early September, it was stationed near the border between France and Belgium. British commanders had shifted their focus north to the Belgian town of Ypres. During the September and October, the battery fired in support of the British attacks at Menin Road and Polygon Wood. Artillery batteries were a target for enemy artillery barrages, known as counter-battery fire. The 18th Battery was shelled at the end of October, and Harper was struck by shell fragments and wounded in his right shoulder. He was evacuated to a hospital in England for recovery. Harper returned to his battery in February 1918. During that year, the battery supported British and Australian infantry attacks, including their major offensives that began in August. In early October, Harper was wounded again, this time in his left leg. He was evacuated to a hospital in the French port town of Le Havre. Harper was last seen alive on the 11th of November 1918, the day of the armistice. French police retrieved his body from the water of the port. A military court of inquiry found that he had accidentally drowned, but exactly how it had occurred was never fully understood. Sydney Harper was 37 years old. He was buried in Sainte Marie Cemetery in Le Havre, alongside more than 1,600 Commonwealth servicemen of the First World War. Sydney's brother, Lance Corporal Bertie William Harper, also served on the Western Front in the 10th Battalion. He was badly wounded in the neck in 1918 and returned to Australia as a result of his wounds. Bombardier Sydney Charles Harper is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph, alongside fellow members of the 18th Battery of the 6th Field Artillery Brigade, is on display today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Bombardier Sydney Charles Harper, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.